Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kieran McKay. Today, we're honored to have a very special guest with us, Christina Flach. Christina is a renowned celebrity hair and makeup artist with a career that spans over 2 decades. She is the founder and CEO of Pretty Girl Makeup and has worked with some of the biggest names in the beauty industry. Christina is known for her empowering approach to makeup, helping her clients feel like the best versions of themselves, both inside and out. And beyond her artistry, Christina is also a philanthropist, a beauty expert on NBC's CA Live, and the host of her own show, I'm Too Busy, on Bold Bravo TV. I would imagine she's very busy because I bet, let's just unmute and welcome you. Hi, Christina. I was just saying, I imagine you're very busy. I know that's not really like your show, but there's a lot of things that I didn't even include in your intro. You have quite the accomplishments. I didn't even talk about the fact that you're a mom. So is there anything in your intro that we want to highlight that we didn't add in there that you want to, make it known?
I think you covered everything. Yes. And all the above. So I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy too. And I'm really excited to chat a little bit about, having someone that's sort of on the in of the beauty world and the industry. I've never had those kind of conversations. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, especially since a consumer of products, we've come a long way. And so beauty has meant so many things from the beginning of time to where we're at. And then you sprinkle in social media and all of these other things. And so it's going to be interesting to hear your thoughts about how the industry has changed, the good, bad, and the ugly. But before we do that, I'm watching the show Lost. I know it's like 30 years later, but I'm watching it with my kids and my husband. And I was thinking the other day, that question they always ask us, like, oh, if you were stranded on an island, like what things would you bring? And I was like, oh, I'm going to ask Christina, like, if we were to ever be stranded on an island, I know it sounds terrible because it's like a plane crash and this is the last thing we want to think about, but let's just play this game. What would you recommend is the best like makeup accessory to have with us, or like a beauty hack that you would never leave your house without? Like what would work on this island?
Well, I think for sure I'd want some sunscreen.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
And a hat.
Yeah.
A big hat. And my book. If I have my book with me, I can kind of deal with whatever. An endless supply of, of my iPad, my book. So, yes.
Have you seen that show? Like, did you watch it when it came out in its time?
I did not watch it. I did not watch it, but I know it was on a lot and people loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see why.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. And, you're like, we're again, how many years later, now it's kind of cool to see, we know these actors that have come up in other things, but the concept and the whole, like, I just want to cry. You see a father and his son, you see a pregnant lady, and people that have lost someone. So they're mourning and then they're on this island. I think, oh my gosh, like that is just a nightmare. I would feel like that would be a nightmare to wake up and realize this is where I'm at. So I'm glad we don't watch those movies on the airplane because it's like intense. It's very intense.
It's intense. It's thought-provoking and very provocative.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so now that we're playing this cute little game, why don't we ask some questions? I know you and I chatted about, it's summer, but also we're like transitioning to fall. Any like 1 to 2 highlights for fall, summer to fall that you focus on with in your world that maybe we could think about?
Well, I think, I speak a lot about beauty from the inside out. And what I mean by that is it's super important. Like fall is starting. It's kind of a new beginning for women, especially moms the kids are finally going back to school. You're getting your schedule like somewhat back on track. So I think it's a good time to kind of reevaluate your self-care, which I don't find to be selfish. I find that if you take good care of you, you're going to be a way better version of you to take care of everybody else. So that means taking time to exercise, making sure, like with your skincare, it's a good time to reevaluate. What do you have in there? Do you have a vitamin C serum? Do you have a sunscreen? Do you have a moisturizer for evening and for an eye cream? So those are good things to just kind of check and see that you have for the winter months, especially where you live in Canada. Your weather is extreme, and cold weather is actually just as harsh on our skin as being in too much sun. The heaters are on, the cold, it tightens our skin, and it doesn't feel fantastic. So protecting our skin during the cold winter months is really important.
Those are good ones. And, I had it highlighted too, because we talked about this in your intro about, who are we from inside and out? And that is really what we're going to talk about today too. It's like, just on the surface, we talk about beauty, we talk about these hacks, and I've read about you, and that is something that I read everywhere in every interview. That's sort of it's like your brand. That's what you talk about. Your motto is all about figuring out who you are from the inside and out. So I'm curious for you, what are some things that you've done along the way to get to that place where you can balance the inside with the outside, since we live in a world where we start with the external. We judge a book by its cover most times. So what are some things that have worked for you? Maybe some advice for those of us that are just struggling with that, present party included.
So I've had 5 children, and that's a lot, but I've always made time for myself so I can not be resentful and exhausted. So when I need to take care of my kids or, do all the things that moms do, it's a lot. So I make sure that, wake up an hour earlier. You would be shocked with 1 hour of non-interrupted time, what you can get done. You can prepare your food for the day. You can make sure that there's water, that you have water. I always recommend every time you get in the car, take a water bottle with you. Have snacks with you. It takes, a little bit of time and preparation, but you will eat better, make better food choices if you have healthy choices in front of your face. So when I get in the car, I always make sure I have, a little bag of raw almonds. I'll have like a green apple. I make green juice every day. It's actually now like swamp juice. It's hardly green. And blueberry and, power greens and broccoli, and it's got a lot of things in it. So I have those with me, especially if I'm going on set. There's always the temptation with craft table, with all kinds that are just going to, not really they're going to make you tired. They're not going to make you feel good, and you're going to gain a bunch of weight. And I'm very blessed to work with all these incredible, celebrity chefs, and I get to taste the food. So, keep it. I'm not saying to not eat yummy food, but do it in moderation. Have a bite. Don't eat the whole entire thing. You're going to feel better. And if you make time for exercise, you're going to have that guilt that like, oh, I've got to work out. It's not there anymore. And it's so nice to not have that as a distraction in life. So I think if you can take a little time, make a list, be prepared, prepare for your day, it will make life so much easier for you, and you're going to feel good. So when you feel good, back to this beauty on the inside out, you look better, you're happier. When you're laughing and you have love in your heart and not feeling like, oh God, I've got to get all this stuff done, because we try to fit so much in, and then we beat the crap out of ourselves when we don't get everything done, and we focus on what we didn't do instead of what we did do. Don't beat the crap out of yourself. That's one bit of advice, and be okay with whatever you got done that day. That was all that you could do, and that's great.
Yeah.
So I think treat yourself the way you would treat others, because I know that you're going to be very respectful and kind to everyone you encounter. I don't know if you're going to do that so much with yourself.
It's so true, right? I really like what you're saying. And I think in like a snapshot, what you're talking about is self-care. And I know I've read this about you. You mentioned this too. Like sometimes we think it's selfish. And I think we get caught up in, like, I worked in mental health for years, and I used to supervise a lot of young, new staff coming out of schooling. And we were crisis 24/7. And we talked a lot about self-care. And a lot of us are taught self-care is bubble baths and, going out with your friends, and which is fun and great. But also when we are doing those things, It's downtime, it's enjoying ourselves, but there's this self-care component that really, what I hear you saying, that is about setting ourselves up. So what is our routine? What are the things that help us get the rest, help us fuel our body? Because we're thinking about the whole marathon versus the sprint sort of mentality. And I think that, you know, the younger generation seems to, well, younger than my generation now, when I look at my kids and these guys, they're starting to understand that in a bit of a different way than maybe you and I, or you know, people that came before us. In your industry, it's a lot of hustle culture. It's a lot of like, you got to get out there, get your work done. You're filming, you're doing all sorts of things, early days, late nights. How do you balance that? You're also a mom of 5 kids. How do you balance all of this in being true to the meaning of, like, you know, what is self-care, caring for myself versus not giving to everyone in those things all day too?
Well, I'm very disciplined. So, you know, I make sure every morning when I wake up, first thing I do is I have water with some lemon and vinegar, probiotic tea. I set myself up for success.
Yeah.
I don't start my day eating a donut.
Yeah.
Okay. Not saying I'm not going to have a donut at some point, but it's not something that I'm going to do every day to feel good. That sugar high is just going to make you crash. Yeah. So that is, I say, wake up an hour early, get your food prepared for the day. And you know, our children will eat whatever we give to them. So, you know, I get so frustrated hearing these people saying, oh, my kids only eat 3 things. Well, that's because that's all you've given them. Start giving them blueberries. I start when my kids, and you know, my kids are grown now. So it's a lot easier for me to be very busy doing these photo shoots and TV shows, all the things, because my kids are grown. You know, I have one child left and he's 18 and he's so busy, like, damn. Yeah. So I want to take that up. I don't want you thinking I'm some Wonder Woman with 5 kids, you know, doing all these.
No, I appreciate you saying that though, because I think that's always scary when I grew up with that mentality that everyone can be Wonder Woman. And I think it's scary when you realize, oh my God, my house can't look like Pinterest all day long. I can't be that way. And so I appreciate that clarification, because I don't hear you saying that at all. I hear you saying, like, do what works for you, set yourself up. So, because you're right, in the moment, it's just not always a right time to grab something healthy. It's not the right time to do the things in the way that we can when we plan ahead or whatnot. So I do hear you saying that versus I'm some superwoman lady.
It's important to be like okay with what you got done today, you know, and some days flow super easy and you get a million things done and that was great. And some days just don't flow, or some days things just are challenging. Yeah. You know, it's going to upset you, or just everything just seems to be going the opposite way than what you want it to. So I think if you can just, on days like that, I will like walk out of my office, go for a walk with my dog, go work out, get my nails done. I will go do something other than what I'm doing, because sometimes it's just not happening. Yeah. And you just need to be kind to yourself. And I find that if we can get in the habit of being gentler and kinder to ourselves, life's going to be better. And then also think, I want my kids to have healthy, happy lives. I want them to have healthy, happy relationships. I want them to have healthy relationship with food, with exercise, with reading a book. But if they don't see me doing that, how on earth are they going to know to do it? So, you know, moms, think about what my daughter had said something to me a while back. You know, Mom, your lectures were lame. Like, I thought they were award-winning things. But said it's the way you conduct yourself, how hardworking you are, how kind, how generous, all these nice things that I didn't even really think they noticed. They notice. You know, if you're on the phone texting while you're driving, which we all do sometimes, you know, the kids notice. They notice if we're gossiping or if we're not eating well. So it's really important to set ourselves up for success and our children by being the best versions of ourselves. And it's just, I try to make my life easier by waking up a little earlier. If I'm on a photo shoot, if I'm doing a TV show and I have an early call time, which is most of the time, I will get up and even do 15 minutes of yoga or wall Pilates. Or if I'm, you know, at the gym, if there's a gym nearby, I will go do a treadmill for 20 minutes, half an hour. It's the consistency. It is not having to, you don't need to do an hour-long cardio class or 2-hour hike. It's literally taking 10, 15 minutes to do a little bit something to get rid of that guilt that we all feel like, oh, I have to go work out. When am I going to fit it in? I don't have time. Or 10-minute walk. Do push-ups, sit-ups, do stretch. Anything is so good. Yeah. And you are going to feel better, and you're going to feel like a better version of yourself. That's all I want for everyone. I want people to love and laugh and be happy and feel good. Now, yes, I am a makeup artist and I like people. I want people to look like the best versions of themselves. I mean, but when people are taking care of their skin, if they're drinking enough water, they're hydrated, if they've rested, all these different things that make them feel good and they're happy, they're going to look way better on screen. That makes my job easier. So that's why when I urge people, take the time to take care of yourself. Yeah. It doesn't take that much time, but it will make an enormous amount of difference in your life by just taking a little bit of care. Washing your makeup brushes. I know this sounds so basic, but I can't tell you how many people have told me, oh, are we supposed to wash them? I didn't know. And they're worried about clean beauty and putting different products on their skin and, but yet they're putting like nuclear waste brushes against their skin that have been in, foundation, a concealer, a mascara, all these different things. They're not clean.
Yeah.
Take the time, wash them with a makeup brush, shampoo and conditioner. Or I did a segment on California Live on this was, you get some water, vinegar, and olive oil. Put your brushes in there. The oil will remove all the makeup and the vinegar will like disinfect it. So.
Oh, these are great tips. I'm like in my head as you're talking, I'm like, like writing them all down. Cause maybe we can talk about this a little bit. The whole makeup etiquette and hygiene, who teaches us that. Before we get there, let's talk a little bit about you. Like when you look back at your childhood, was the creativity path something that you were always going to follow? Or are you kind of surprised that you ended up doing what you're doing?
I think my mom was incredibly creative. She sewed incredibly well. She was an amazing photographer. She was a gourmet cook. And she always made things beautiful. So that was always kind of around me. I did not expect to do this, to be a makeup artist or a CEO of a makeup company or a TV host or a beauty expert. It never occurred to me in 1,000 years. So I think one of the things that I do to this day, I'm very open to things. It's so easy to say, oh, well, I'm a makeup artist. I can't go in front of the camera. I'm not going to do that. That's scary. I will say, I learned to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And what that means, that feeling we get like, oh, I'm scared. I don't want to do that. Well, I now know that feeling will lead to something great. I know that feeling scared or anxious or excited, something good's going to happen. So when I started doing being a beauty expert on California Live, I was shocked. Being on live TV is terrifying because in your head, you're thinking, there are millions of people watching me. If I say one word wrong, it's out there forever,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Really overcoming that obstacle, you get comfortable and you feel like a level of confidence that I didn't know I even possessed to do other things. So when I was offered this TV show to do, I'm Too Busy, for Bold Brave TV, my whole thing was like, oh my God, no. But then I thought, well, why wouldn't I? So everyone's busy, men and women. And I know a ton of really cool people that do amazing things. And one of the gifts with purchase of my job being a makeup artist, I get to meet all these amazing people.
Right.
Like if you go to ChristinaFlach.com and go to my client list,
oh yeah, the list doesn't end. It's like, I know, I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I'm not going to bring anyone up, but I was very curious if, you had stories. You're more than welcome to share, with funny stories or moments. Because you get to see talent in the way that we don't, right? We get to see the polished version, whether they're going on an interview or whatever it is, but you get to see people that are cranky, haven't had their coffee, showing up, people that don't even know how to do their makeup, but always look like they're well done, all these sorts of things. And stylists and artists don't get the credit. And so I'm curious for you, like having met all these different celebrities, like the lists that go on, what stands out to you in these conversations or moments, or maybe even things that you've learned about yourself through interactions with the folks in the industry?
So I think I usually start out with my clients, like I have to figure out in 3 seconds whether they want to talk, they want quiet, they want to share something, they want to talk to me. I have to figure it out really quickly because it's about them. It's not about me.
Right.
And I have to be very respectful of that. So I've learned very quickly to read people's moods. But the fun part with them is everyone has a story. And these people all have amazing stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always, it's everyone has a bumpy path at some point in their life. So I've learned that there are people that you think, oh, it's so funny. You see them in magazines or TV and or Instagram or whatever, and you think, oh my God, their life's so fabulous. They have the same problems you and I have.
Mm-hmm.
The same difficulties that we all have. And so, but it's so interesting to hear. And what I love, and one thing that all these people have in common, they have all figured out what they love doing and figured out how to get paid.
Yeah. That's genius.
I like it. Figure out, I don't care what you do in life, but wake up excited and enthusiastic to do whatever it is you're going to do, and then figure out how to get paid and well.
Yeah. For people out, like outside of that industry, the rest of the world, when they listen to this conversation, I know this because I'm in that world of sometimes we think that's not for me. Like I work multiple jobs. I live a life that won't allow me to exercise or eat well or, set myself up for success. All these kinds of things. Like people feel, some people are submissive to whatever health issues they have and all these sorts of things. And so what would you say to folks that are in this world of, but that's not for me. I have to suffer over here. I can't live a life like this. And so, even when you were saying working out, if you get 15 minutes in, absolutely. Like it's more about mental than it is even about physical. And we think, oh, I got to go to the gym and work 2 hours and do, 130 pounds of deadlifts. If I don't do that, then I don't know how to work out. And so people just stop at that point and think, well, it's not for me. So what for you, you're kind of on the edge, you're inside that world, but also you're not. So what advice or what sort of comes to you? And what would you say to folks that are like, I love that for you, but I can't do these kinds of things?
Well, that's a choice. And you're lazy.
Oh, so, oh, shit.
If you want to you can always make an excuse about not doing this. If you want to have a healthy, happy life and feel good physically and mentally, you need to get off the couch. You need to go exercise. You need to eat well. You need to be grateful for things in your life. If you don't like your life, change the goddamn thing. Like, no one is going to make you, you are not entitled to anything in this life. You have to make it happen. And I think one thing I see with the people, my clients that I deal with, that they've made a choice to be exceptional. And to be exceptional means you're not lazy or unmotivated. You've got to get up to do these things, right, to be successful. And it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't need, when people just give up, well, bury a grave and kill yourself. I mean, honestly, I feel like life is a blessing, and you can be as great as you want. If you want to be miserable and negative and unhappy, you go do you. I just think, like, why would you want to make that choice? And why would you want to set that example for your kids? We all have 24 hours in a day. Yeah. It is to use 24 hours. When I had 5 kids at home, and I did for a really long time, I still made a point of, if I dropped a kid off at school or they had a lesson and I had like my twins, my last 2 were twins, I'd put them in a stroller and I'd go for a walk. You can decide what you want to do. If you want to just scroll Instagram or TikTok, that's fine. But don't complain about it. If you're going to complain about it, make a change. Or not make a change. But just know it is you can have the life you want. I wanted this life. I wanted a life that I met incredible people and that I worked hard and that I'm able to express myself creatively. But it wasn't always easy. I worked a lot of jobs and I still do for not a lot of money, but I get to be in People magazine doing makeup and hair for Rita Moreno, which big deal. So I also am open, like when my agents call me, I always say yes and that thank you. And I'm very grateful to them for opportunities they've given me, because I'm very blessed that, I do have a very, diverse portfolio and client list, but that didn't happen overnight. That was a lot of years of long, hard hours and hard work. And it's not always fun and games. Sometimes it's freezing cold outside and I have to be out there with my client and sometimes they're in a bad mood and I have to deal with it, but I love it. And I love people and I enjoy the time I get to spend with them. And last week I was with Zach Posen at Gap in San Francisco. He's got a whole new job revamping Banana Republic, Old Navy, and Gap. And I got to spend the day with him. And how great is that? Jeff Latham the week before with Williams Sonoma. And he's created this amazing Christmas line for decorations for Williams Sonoma. And so these are people that are just fun and interesting.
And creative. Just a creative world you're in, right? And you get to feed off of that energy when we lose sight of our light, and it dims over time and we have to find a way to relight it. And when we can't, I think it's hard to see doors opening and opportunities. But when we can light, and I think that's what you've been talking about from the beginning, is all these little self-care things are about keeping our light shining and finding a way to do what it is that we can to contribute in the best way, whether it's being a creative and really going hard or, being an art teacher at a school, like whatever it is in between, not losing sight of who we are. And I think for many of us, we struggle with that whole identity piece. I mean, I hit my 40s a couple of years ago and I'm like, why am I going through this again? Like, what the heck? I thought I had my life figured out and now I'm really figuring out all this stuff. And I think we need to surround ourselves around people that when our light is dim, they can help try to ignite it or help remind us about, we don't have to just like lay down and give up as well. Because sometimes maybe it's lazy, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's a lot of barriers and it's hard every day to work through them. And everyone has their barriers. I just appreciate when those times have been in that way for me, that being around people that encourage, do your best. Like you said, today your best is getting up and cleaning your house, or maybe it's getting your kids to school. And tomorrow your best might be opening a business of millions of dollars, whatever it is, figure that out. And I think a lot of times we get lost in that because when we see other people doing so well, we're taught to not be happy and uplift. We're taught imposter syndrome. If you're doing so well, that means that I'm not. And we tend to internalize it. And sometimes that can be a barrier for us. And we, on the other end, who don't get to live in the life or know what it is like behind the scenes with talent, artists, hair, makeup, all that. I think we get caught in when we buy those People magazines. You're right. We don't know that it was a 20-year, dream in the making and it looks like it's overnight. And we think, oh, this actress just got discovered. And, we don't get those things. But I think sometimes where the struggle for us on this end is that it's hard when you have people that we put on a pedestal, whether it's celebrity singers, dancers, actors. It's very helpful when they do talk about real life shit too, about it wasn't easy. It's not, my own mental health has gotten in the way or whatnot. I think a lot of people are appreciating that in that kind of connection, which is allowing other folks starting to address their own mental health or realizing, okay, like we all have this issue. Just because you're Scarlett Johansson doesn't mean that you don't have life issues or whatnot.
A little smarter and just think, this is what they're putting out into the world. Like I know what I put out into the world with social media. It's what I want you to see.
Right. So totally.
I'm a private person as well, even though my life is public. I don't expose a lot of things of my children or, people that I'm with. I just don't. I just keep it private. And so people need to be a little bit smarter and realize this is what they're showing you. Yeah. They're people just They go to the supermarket, they work out, they have the same problems. And to just know that the difference between them and someone else, they don't put a barrier of like, oh, I can't do that. That word doesn't exist for people like this. That there's no, oh, well, I'm 40, I can't do this. Or I'm 55 and I can't start this. That's ridiculous. There should not be an age or a time. You should live your life to the fullest all the time and, be open to new things. That's the one thing that I can guarantee you in life, change. Change is happening and we have to go with it. For example, when I am not on a photo shoot, I'm writing a magazine article or I'm doing a podcast or a TV show. I make things happen constantly. And I reach out to different clients. I mean, I still am scrambling I have to get funding for a new company I want to start. I mean, there's all these different things, but I really enjoy every process that I'm going through. That's why I think that I've had success, because I don't resent it. I think if you go start a business just to make $1 million, you're going to fail, because you really have to love this. You have to love it so much that you don't mind getting paid, or that you don't mind, missing things in life. Like, your kids, soccer game. Sometimes you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
It's important to enjoy it all, because if you enjoy it, you're not going to mind waking up at 5 a.m. or not making a ton of money, but it will come. I can promise that. You will be successful. Don't give up. And to me, there is no such thing as failure. I have said this so many times. The only failure is being stagnant and complete. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, well, she's got nannies, or she can make a cook or do. No, I wake my ass up. I make all these, I do these things.
Yeah.
And yes, help. I did have nannies when I had a nanny when my kids were little, and that did make things easier, but I was still, it would just give me opportunity. 2 or 3 kids are asleep, I could take another one to a ballet class. Yeah. So I don't like when people complain about, oh, I have to make cookies for this PTA thing. Don't make it. Go buy them. Yeah. No one wants to be around a martyr that, oh, I have to. Don't do it. Do what you want. Do what makes you happy and brings you joy. No one wants to be around someone that's complaining all the time. And I think that's another thing that is a skill that I have learned. I'm very positive. When I go on set, nothing's beneath me. If the lighting guy needs help, I'll hold his light up for him. Or if someone wants a cup of tea, I'll go make him a cup of tea. Like, I'm a team player. I work really well with a team, and that is why I'm hired back. I don't complain about, when are we done? I'm tired. I want to go home. Oh, I hate this. No one wants to be around that, and you will never get hired.
Yeah. I mean, and I think even nobody wants to be around that in a family situation, right? Like when we have family get-togethers or friends or what, and when we are in a group and really struggling to recognize that we are struggling, it comes out in all sorts of ways. And, it's, again, chronic issues, health issues, all sorts of things. And I think at the end of the day, like, it feels like there's no choice. But I mean, I agree too. We have one life, and it's up to us to decide how, we're gonna live it. And there's obstacles that are gonna come in our way, and some of us know how to work through them. But also, if we surround ourselves around a community, it's amazing what we can get done. And sometimes I worry about, friends or family that I see. I'm like, you're doing all this on your own. And what would happen if you just took a minute and figured out how to bring your team along, your family, your friends, or whoever it is, your kids that can help you. But that martyr mentality, we see it. We see it in the workplace, we see it. And often it comes back from, all our childhood stuff. Our needs aren't met. We're not being validated. We're not being acknowledged. We don't know how to ask for that. And as women, right, we're also taught, like, you can't ask for that. So we can sometimes find interesting ways to ask for it too. And so I think all these sorts of things lead up to why we come out the way we do with complaining. So I just want to shift gears for a second, because I want to ask you about, if it's possible, if you look back, if we just talk about beauty for a second, like the industry earliest history recordings, I think they say Egypt is where makeup came from. Who knows? Maybe other parts of the world. But it was a luxury. You were a royal. You wore it if you were an important person. And then over time, you have, it's not just luxury, it's luxury and gender. So you have like Mary Kay and Avon, and there's ways that women are coming to your house to help you find your self-esteem and help you feel great and all that. And so that was sort of the trend. And then, along the way, we've had social media come along in ways that maybe at the beginning of your career, it wasn't that sort of way. And so I'm just curious, with your experience in the industry, where have you seen things projecting, and like, where do you feel things are at in the world of beauty? And, there's so much access to, so many of all of us have access to it in a different way. So where have you seen it grow, and where are you hoping that, things will go next?
That's a really interesting question. I think what I've seen in the last, 10, 15 years is that people are really more concerned about nutrition as a beauty product.
Okay. Yeah.
Hydration, water, super important. Exercise, protecting our skin, sunscreen, wearing the hat. So I think that people are now, which is a really great thing, taking time to make sure that they take good care of their skin and that they're rested and they're eating. And that's why I try to speak a lot about beauty from the inside out and being the best version of you. People, this is another thing I wanted, back to our other subject we were talking about. I am so blessed with all these different people that I work with to be able to ask advice and to ask. I can talk to Condoleezza Rice or Tyler Prince or Bobby Flay or all the different people that I work with. Hey, how did you do that? Tyler Florence has been my client for 16 years. I do his glam. He's a celebrity chef here in the United States. And he inspires me so much because, he has taken his career to heights that are just unbelievable. We did 2 magazine covers this year. We did a TV show. We did commercial for Visa. We've done all these amazing things. So he inspires me because I see how he pushes himself and how he is open to opportunities. Talk to different people. If you're interested, if you don't like your corporate job or whatever it is that you're doing, figure out what is it that you do love doing. Do you like being a florist, or do you want to be a makeup artist? You can do that part-time until you can figure out how to make enough money to support yourself full-time. But sometimes it's just enough to be able to do that on your after hours or weekends, doing the job brings you joy, that your other job, you won't just resent it so much either. So I think it's super important. Ask for help. People are so generous and kind with their wisdom. Zach Posen, exactly, for example, my daughter, Melania, is starting a golf line. She's a fashion designer. So, they had both gone to Parsons in New York and Central St. Martin's in London. So Zach was so gracious. He FaceTimed with my daughter. They chatted, and he was like, I'll introduce you to this person. Send me your portfolio. I want to see it. Like, he did not need to do that. Right. I literally 20 minutes when he did it. He was so kind. But that is what's successful. It's kind of like when you get into that place where you're, successful, whatever that means, it's kind of your obligation to the rest of the world. If you can share your knowledge, share whatever, you need to do that. It's really important. It makes me feel so good when I can help someone else. Yeah. Because so many people helped me along the way.
Totally. Yep.
Gave me opportunities, gave me advice, made an introduction. I am grateful for all of those things. And so if you're open, there are an endless supply of opportunities out in the world. And sometimes we think, oh, I can't do that. Well, why can't you? Do it. And try out of my vocabulary because there's wiggle room to like, oh, well, I tried. No, you didn't try. Set a goal and do it. There are no failures. So the universe, like, let's say something goes wrong on this road. All that means is I need to turn right instead of left. They're not failures. Sometimes they're happening for you. Maybe that was the wrong way to go down and you need to go down the other way. There's no failure. So take failure out of your vocabulary. It's just a bump and it'll pass.
Christina, what's the story that's led you to this place? Because there has to be a story or an experience or something that's brought you to this place where you know, like I hear you with it's not failure. It's just an opportunity to try something different. And I can't help but think there's something that has helped you get to this mindset or, you know, feel that this is a way to go. Like, is there a story or am I just, you know, reading into it? Like, how'd you get here?
Well, I have a lot of stories. My mother was diagnosed with brain cancer when I was very young. She died when I was 19. My son, Bo, passed away when he was 4.5 months old on Christmas. My husband, Ken Flach, who was a professional tennis player, he died 6 years ago. These were all things that felt like they were happening to me. Mm-hmm. And they did happen to me. But it also led me to different things happening in life. So, you know, we all get thrown lemons, sour, moldy lemons, and it's up to us to make lemonade. So when my son, Bo, passed away, I started an educational fund at a private school for underprivileged children in Oakland, California, because I didn't want my son forgotten. So I raise money every year for this school to survive. There's a golf tournament. There's one at the end of this month in September that my son, Ben, Bo's twin, has played in for the last 8 years. My son's 18 years old and has raised $200,000 for kids to go to private school. That is such a huge deal. Mm-hmm. So my son lost his twin and his dad, but yet he gives back to make the world a better place, but to also, it makes him feel good to help others. Mm-hmm. So my husband passed away from sepsis 6 years ago, and I started the Sepsis Alliance, contacted me and asked if I would raise awareness for the signs of sepsis because of who my husband was. And so I started doing that, even though I really didn't want to, but that was something that, like, I never, that's how I started doing these podcasts, was to do that. But it really helped me. It made me feel so good to hear from others that I saved their life or them or their loved one. I get letters all the time, or DMs or texts or calls from people saying like, oh my God, I heard your podcast. I was talking about the signs of sepsis. One of my coworkers got it. They went to the doctor and they were saved. I get it all the time. Mm-hmm. So all those things make me feel like, take something that really sucked, awful, my husband dying, but I'm trying to honor him and make the world a better place. So, I mean, people will hear, like, at the beginning of the interview, they think, oh, she's a makeup artist, she's rich, does all fabulous things, but you don't know my path. It hasn't been easy. Yeah. It's not easy to go through a divorce and my son dying and then my getting remarried and my husband dying. I mean, these are all like things that shouldn't happen to anybody, but they do. I mean, and a lot of people have said to me, like, I don't understand how you can be so positive. Well, it's really easy. I don't like being miserable. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's not like I don't feel these things. I feel them profoundly. Mm-hmm. But also, I have children that if I lose my shit, or if I go down this dark rabbit hole of misery and negativity, it is going to affect them. And I will never allow that to happen. So when you see someone like me that you think, oh, she has the world so easy, her life's a joke, you have no idea. Mm-hmm. All you see is what I am showing you out in social media. So keep in mind when you see a celebrity and you think their life's so easy, it's just like ours. They have the same problems. It's just
no, for sure. And I think we're humans at the end of the day. Like, given your profession is different than a teacher or whatnot. Everyone's doing their thing. And I think we do this with people that are in your industry, but we do this with our own neighbors, with our own family members, where we think, you have it easy. You don't get me. You don't get my life. And I think it's a constant reminder. And this is like from the minute you started talking, like, I was aware of your grief and loss. But also for me, it's like for you to bring up. It's not, it's not for me to bring up. And I appreciate you did and you shared it, because it really helps me, I think maybe even others understand when you came in from the beginning, why you've been saying what you've been saying in the way that you have. Like you get it. You know what misery is. And anyone that's been there, like, you know, we can keep living life that way, or we can still be miserable because that's going to happen, but find a different way to work through life, because it's an opportunity. Like you said, that you've been able to bring awareness, and, you know, your kids are going to learn about grief and loss. Like, this is how we all learn. You learned at a young age. We all learn about these traumatic experiences, and we all go through them. It's just who's there to help us work through them. And when our kids get to experience something like grief in the way that maybe your family has, but then to come out in the way your son is, by saying, okay, like, how do we make this crappy situation turn into something where we can give back? I think we're doing a pretty good job as humans. I think that's at the end of the day, that's what we want to do, is to pay it forward, help each other out in that way.
I had this like vision one day. I was on a walk and I could hear my husband saying to me, I hate seeing you sad from up there. I can't comfort you the way I could when I was down there with you. And when I thought of it from that perspective, I would feel so terrible that he just sees me pressed and sad and angry and not happy and being the best version of me. So that is why when I speak about grief, I think that, you know, everyone grieves differently and no one's grief is worse than anyone's else's. But I don't think we are not honoring our loved one by being angry, miserable, not making the best life we can live. So when my son Bo passed away, it was so beyond. My little baby dies on Christmas. I mean, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. So one of my friends had given me like a sleeping pill to just calm down. And I just started taking them just to function. And after like a month, my friends came to me and were like, my husband, they're like, okay, you're not a drug addict. I mean, I was taking like a sleeping pill just to function in the day. It wasn't like anything bad. I didn't go to rehab or anything, and not that I wouldn't have if I had to.
Right.
But I knew that when my husband died, I couldn't go down that dark hole again because I knew it was so bad. And I didn't want my kids to see, I mean, they saw me sad and struggling, obviously, but I knew that I had to be even more disciplined this time. I would exercise twice a day. And it wasn't to like get in some crazy shape. It was just to function. Mm-hmm. I'd go on a walk. I'd go to Pilates. I'd ride my horse. I would do anything just to move. And then I started making sure I ate really well, because it's so easy when you're feeling terrible. Oh, I'll have a glass of wine. Oh, I'll have some cookies. None of that. It's all a math. It's not going to help. So I had to really sit and deal with this miserable time. And I did. It was awful. It really was awful. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there were financial problems that I had to deal with that I didn't even know about. And it was like, what next? Yeah. Like, I just felt like I was getting kicked in the stomach left and right. On top of which, because my husband was famous, it was public, his death and, you know, all that, which is really great, but then not really.
Right. Yeah.
You mean go, oh, that's his wife, you know, like, you know, then I went through this lawsuit against Kaiser Permanente. I sued them because they killed my husband and I won. And it took 4.5 years. And that wasn't easy. So I have had to deal with so much utter yuck, but I know that there's this great Whitney Houston song, I Didn't Know My Own Strength. And I listened to that song, I think 2 million times. There's so much music that I would listen to just keep me going. And there were days that were just horrible, but because how much I love my kids, I'm like, I can't give up. I have to get through this. And so, you know, I'm really grateful for getting through those bumpy times, but I'm also feeling like, you know, I chose to honor my husband and my son, my mother, by, you know, raising money for underprivileged children to have a good education. I started an outdoor classroom and garden at the Edna McGuire School in Mill Valley, California, named after my son, Bo, because nutrition and education are really important to me. My kids have been very blessed that they've gone to amazing schools and they've been able to eat, you know, healthy, great food. Mm-hmm. I want child to feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people can, that is why I wake up that extra time early. I want to make sure that my kids have something healthy to eat in their lunch, and they see that I'm doing it. I want them to see, like, I could lecture them all day about, you need to work out, you need to eat well, you shouldn't do drugs, you shouldn't eat. If I'm doing the exact opposite of what I'm saying, what a hypocrite.
Oh, absolutely. So, practice what we preach, right? We were taught that at a young age. And for some reason, when we become adults, we forget it because we have our egos and we think no one's watching us. But, I said this to my husband too. Like, my best friend picked up our younger son the other day and brought him home from a friend's. And she's like, boy, did I learn a lot about what's going on at home. And we're like, oh, do tell. And my son is worried about the inflation and the house rates. And then sometimes my husband does work calls where he's a pacer. So he paces around the house. And my son took something out of context and was like, oh, we lost $1 million at work and, all these sorts of things. And so my friend, who's a therapist,
you didn't even think he was.
No, because, he's got his headphones on and off. He's on his electronics or whatnot. And so, and these are things, working in mental health, knowing these things, but still we're humans. And my husband and I had this conversation this morning. Like, we have to be really mindful, because if they're picking up on that, like, imagine what beautiful positivity, gratitude we could be sprinkling when we talk that they could also pick up from. So how do we want our dialogue to go? And are these things that they need to hear about? And, so just being mindful about, I think that's what this podcast in the last couple of years of starting this has taught me. And every guest like you comes on and talks about, self-compassion, and we forget about it. We forget about what it is we can do when we start with ourselves and leaving this big job that I left and starting this podcast. The hope is to bridge our community so we can talk about these things, learn from each other. And at the end of the day, again, like, challenge, ourselves in the way that you did today with, come on, figure it out. Like, don't give up. It's not that easy to, say, this is all I can give. Like, what can we do to help? And I think that's a great message. Well, at least that's the message that I took.
I think what a blessing that your friend even told you that, because you know what? The fact that someone said to you what happened, it's totally shifting what your kids are going to be hearing, Mm-hmm. So what that was. And I think it's great that you're taking it like, okay, we're going to be a little more mindful of things that they hear and what they don't hear, because you don't want your kid, your child, the sense he's hearing, inflation and housing.
Boring.
What? My God, that poor baby.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about it. Like, you shouldn't have to at 10. You go have fun. Go be a kid, right? Go make some core memories. And I think it's just those reminders. But like you said, when people share that info with us, that's a huge thing. I had somebody message me the other day and they shared some really kind words. And I was thinking about this today, like, how often do I do that, in that letting people know that you're on their mind, or letting people know that, close the loop. I heard this or this, just the way, like you said, my girlfriend did with us. Sometimes we think people don't want to hear it or don't need to or what. But when we share that information, again, it's being a collective and understanding that, sometimes we work in silos, but we come together and we get more done in that way.
Yeah. Because I've had so much loss in my life. I mean, my business partner passed away. I've had two of my best friends died in 14 months, and I was with them till the end. I've had some heavy stuff. And that is why I always tell everyone, I love you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And if they're on my mind, I shoot them a text, because it is very fragile to me. And you don't know how long you have in this life. Yeah. You really do. And I think we have to, take the time to really, and I know people say it's take time to smell the roses. Go out and smell the goddamn rose. Yourself. And I believe, you know what? I really believe that the discipline. I wake up every morning, I make my bed. I make sure there's fresh flowers in my house and that there's order, because I want things to feel, I'm really sensitive and I'm an artist. I'm very visual. I like things to be in order. I don't like chaos. I don't like a mess. I don't like clutter. I can't stand it. So I've made my home really beautiful, and it doesn't need to be fancy. Mm-hmm. You can get things at a garage sale, or you can, it's how you put them out there.
Yeah.
And so, put your china out and use it. What are you saving it for? A rainy day? Like when? Christmas? Use that china. I just think it's really important to enjoy life. Life is what you make it. And I know we said that earlier, but it really is. Go out. It's Sunday. I have this friend, Tiffany DeBartolo. She's a writer. She's amazing. But she makes it, like we call it Sunday is Tiffany DeBartolo Day. What she has taught me, what you're supposed to do on that day: read, eat, have sex, exercise, watch a movie. Enjoy that day. Take that day to not do the yucky stuff. Just do what you feel like doing. And if you feel like working out, great. If you don't, go to a movie. Do something. But have a day that is just nothing but decadence. It doesn't have
Indulge. Yeah.
Indulge.
Yeah.
Read that book. If that book is really important. And I can't, to me, reading is such a decadent. It's like my biggest joy. I love to read my book. It's like everything. And I really wish that people would take more time and go get to the library or go buy a book and read it and enjoy it. Because I really think it's such an important thing in life to read and to show your kids that you read. Because, that's one thing I really love about my daughters and all my kids. They love to read. They have a book. And one of my daughters is a writer. She's a screenwriter. And she has a book. She was so funny. She was telling me, Mom, I have a book I read first thing in the morning for while I'm having my coffee. And then around lunchtime, I'll read a different book. And then at night, I'm in a book. She does all this different reading, and she has different book clubs, and they're different people and with different topics. And I just love that because it's keeping her mind open,
right,
and learning. And I think, the second that you think that you know everything, oh boy, you are going to get hit with the universe stick of something. Because, if we don't keep evolving and improving and learning, you wither up and die. It's important to do all these things.
Totally. I agree with you. I think if we know that the one thing we do know is that we wear blinders, I think that helps us sort of have that awareness or what versus, my ego, I know everything. I mean, there's a time and place to behave that way when you're a 3-year-old and the world revolves around you. And sometimes some of us don't find our way out of that. And I think it interesting when you are in adult relationships and how that comes up, and I already know enough, or I don't need to learn or whatnot, and it's sad.
Oh, well, that's sad. That's sad. You don't need to, you don't need to. You should want to.
Well, I think we have to. It's a necessity. The world is ever changing. The world is not the same as it was when I was a kid. And for me to expect it to be remotely similar when my kids are growing up, I'm doing myself and my kids a disservice. Am I sad by the way things are changed? Sure, that's part of grief and loss. Things, aren't the way that we wish they were, but it's happening. It's inevitable that if we don't figure that stuff out or get ahead of it, can I at least say I had an awareness and I was doing the best I can versus, again, my blinders were on.
I like that you're saying you're doing your best, because I think as parents, we always feel like, oh God, I'm the worst mom.
Oh my gosh, right? Still feel that way though.
And I think that if we can just know, this is the best, and I think forgiving our parents, and it's so easy on about, oh, well, my childhood, okay, we've all had one, we've all had parents, but just think your parent did the best they could do with how they were raised and with the skills they had. And so I think when I look back, I think because I've had children, and I can forgive my parents for things that I didn't think was the greatest.
Yeah.
But just my father was raised by a very strong Russian, man. And so he's like that. And so I get frustrated with him sometimes because he's so Russian. And
yeah.
So, but now I'm a little softer on that because I'm like, well, that's the best he could do.
That's what he knows.
And if you know that the person that you're having a situation with is honestly doing the best they can do, you can't get mad at them for that. That's a lot. It's all. So I just think just do your best. Try and beating the crap out of yourself is just a waste of time, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, we're doing it. It's happening. And so is there a way that we can, be kinder? Because these experiences are happening regardless. And it's just those reminders. I do think surrounding ourselves around people that challenge us it's nice to be around like-minded people, but it's also helpful to be around folks that maybe don't agree with us in the way that we see it and can help challenge us in either getting, reigniting that light or finding a way to work through some of the stuff that sometimes we're stuck. We think this is the way it is. The sky is only blue. It's never going to be any other color. And I think it's helpful to be around others that are like, well, I've seen it in many different versions and, it's okay. Like, let's figure it out.
I think it's really important for people to be open, like to be not be so set in your ways and so set in your mindset that you are unwilling or incapable to look at something else. We didn't know we liked strawberry ice until we tried it, right? So sometimes we have to be open and think, okay, I heard a podcast with Dana Carvey, who's a friend of mine, and he has this great podcast. And he was saying, you know what, whatever you are, Republican or a Democrat, for 1 week, watch the other news, like a different news channel than what you typically watch. You know what you believe, but go look and see why someone else is thinking the way they're thinking. And I think I thought that was so brilliant that he said that, because, why are you going to keep listening to the same news channel that you agree with and go hear the other side. Maybe you'll change your opinion, or maybe at least you'll understand why they're thinking the way they're thinking. And I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah. Unconscious bias, right? Totally. Yeah.
Any topic whatsoever.
Yeah, it matters. Yeah, I hear you. Like, absolutely, figuring out why are you coming from that place when you say what you are, and I think the first thing is dealing with the personalization, because some of these topics or conversations can feel personal, and so it's like working through some of that to be able to see, okay, I may not agree with this person's belief system, but interesting that exists. Are there more belief systems like this? What does that mean to society, to people? Like, I think there's lots of ways that we can be reflective and still vote for who we're going to vote for, still do, like, at the end of the day, it's our decision what we're going to do. But I think we're so afraid, right? We're afraid of someone convincing us or, inviting us to look at something from a different way. And there's risk and there's fear because it's unknown. Even if I know I might like it, that, strawberry
ice cream.
Yeah. Like, even though I might love it, I'm a chocolate ice cream. Like, I might, what if I like it more than all I've known is chocolate ice cream, right? That's scary. So we stop ourselves in that. So, okay. I feel like I could keep you all day, and I appreciate that you've given me an hour of your time. I bet you have a lot. So I'm going to just ask in this moment if we can do our middle fingers up segment. So, middle fingers up. We talked about a lot of things. Talked about grief and loss, talked about parenting. We talked about jobs, everything in between. I'm not sure if your middle fingers up is anything towards some of the topics we covered or something completely different, but what do you want to throw them up to today?
I think I want to give the middle finger up to the media here in the United States. They are not honest. They're not fair. And they've got an agenda. And it really bothers me. Journalists need to state the facts and not their opinion, and not try to sway people one way or the other. I find it despicable. I find it despicable politicians that lie to cover things up. The big finger up to them. So,
ooh, I like that one. Well said. Yeah, you guys are going through a lot, I'm sure, as your November's approaching. So there's lots of, I would imagine, tension in the air and worries about where are things headed.
Very scary here right now. It is not, there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of crime. And I think it's pretty funny that people that have been in office and running this country are now deciding to do things a totally different way. Well, why didn't you do that the whole time?
You're like, wait, you had that option in your back pocket the whole time?
You could do it right now. Like right this second, you could shut that border or do whatever, but you're not. But yet I'm supposed to give you a promotion and vote for you. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Well, we feel the impact. I know not in the same way that you do, but we feel the ripple effects as your neighbor. So good luck to that. And I think it's like COVID. It's like politics, religion, all these kinds of things. We have beliefs. And I think we have to be mindful of where does mine come from? The beginning of that story. It can, like you said, can I learn more? And also understanding where do other people come from when they're saying the things or feeling the things. Or if I have a right to feel and believe the way that I do, then how do I, share that compassion with someone who I might disagree with? So I think that's an important message, especially in the time that you guys are in as you're approaching your election. Okay, so is there anything that you wish I had asked you today or that we talked about that we didn't, that we want to cover before we wish each other well?
I think what I wish for your listeners and everyone in the world, love your life. And if you don't love it, change it. And, just make one little change. It doesn't need to be so light. It doesn't need to be so big. Do one little thing that'll lead to the next thing. And don't be afraid. Be afraid of doing nothing. That's what's frightening to me. And, take time to love hard, laugh hard, and figure out what you can't wait to get up in the morning to go do. And that will bring you a lot of joy, I think.
Well said. Where can we find you, Christina? If folks want to follow you, they want to watch your show, like where are the best places to get in touch with you?
Okay. So you can go to ChristinaFlach.com to see all my makeup artistry. You can go to PrettyGirlMakeup.com for my products. I'm Too Busy TV. Go to that website. You can see my episodes. I'm on YouTube and it's I'm Too Busy TV.
And we'll also add that in the show notes for everyone as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it was so fun chatting with you. It was really great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming on. And for everyone else listening, these conversations are door openers. If you want to add on, if you have any feedback, questions, you know where to find us. Thank you again for being our guest today. Have a great one.
Thank you.